Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been introduced to many ritual decks throughout its history, some of which have completely dominated the metagame, while others have, well, yeah. The summoning mechanic as a whole is kind of a mixed bag for reasons I won't be getting into for this video, but it's undeniably my favorite mechanic and probably the one with some of the coolest archetypes in the entire game. That said, Voiceless Voice might be the most silent of them all. Voiceless Voice is a ritual archetype whose story revolves around the likes of one monster, Lo, the prayers of the Voiceless Voice. We find proof of this in the OCG's valuable book EX4. Let me explain. In some faraway realm, a fair maiden, Lo, traveled across the world to spread her religion through silent prayers. Her pilgrimage was not easy, however. She came across a great many fearsome monsters and assailants, the former of which sought to devour her flesh, while the latter opposed her beliefs. Fortunately, Lo had been bestowed a protector. The formidable Skull Guardian would dispatch any and all threats against its mistress. Together, the two characters overcame multiple tests of their strength and their conviction. The religion Lo cherished so deeply concerned the dragon gods. The legendary dragon sage Soravis served his master, the dragon goddess Saphira, the ultimate beacon of benevolence and grandeur. The deities watched over the disciples from a heavenly plane, curious if they would ever be worthy of otherworldly grace. Eventually, Lo would stumble upon a cathedral with a deep-seated connection to her idols. Performing one final prayer, she earned an audience with Saphira, who took on a tangible form to greet the maiden. The dragon goddess, recognizing the dedication of the girl and her protector, conferred onto them immense power. Skull Guardian's armor and blades were renewed from their weathered state and fashioned near unbreakable. Lo obtained the ability to summon Saphira in her full glory when need be. A pact had been formed between the mortal and the divine, one that would vanquish evil for decades to come. The TCG name Voiceless Voice is an adequate way to communicate the ritual deck's narrative. Lo's prayers, like those of the prevailing religions in Japan, Shintoism and Buddhism, are performed in silence. This is done to convey respect to their deities and to form a spiritual connection with them in those brief moments. Hence, a voice without a voice, the internal voice of the follower projecting through their outward silence. Should we assume that Voiceless Voice instead tries to pay some tribute to Christianity, you could also consider its name a reference to Proverbs 31:8-9 of the Bible. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Essentially, a voice for those without a voice. The follower chooses to stand up for others who cannot. Of course, there is no proof that Voiceless Voice actually draws from a particular practice. The notes I've made so far in this section are pure speculation. Though, as I always say in my lore videos, it's fun to try and read behind the cards. The OCG name for Voiceless Voice is a little bit more clever than the TCG name. Before being localized, the ritual deck bore the title Shukusei as romanized from the actual kanji. You might have heard the name Silent Force or Silent Fork floated about at some point. But please know that this was a premature English translation of the OCG name when the deck first got announced. It's not at all accurate, so try not to use it, or else. Shukusei can mean many things. The kanji assigned to the archetype can be interpreted as a wordplay on the actual Japanese word shukusei, which means regulation or enforcement. On the one hand, this could harken to the strict conduct some religions expect their followers to abide by, especially since regulation here leans more so to the side of regulation of moral integrity as opposed to things like governmental regulation. On the other hand, it could refer to the act of Lo and the dragon gods regulating malevolence after their arrangement. The individual kanji characters can be looked at further interestingly. The first character can mean solemn or quiet, while the second, voice. I don't think it takes a genius to understand where this is going. Coincidentally, if you were to reverse the order of the characters, you are instead presented with the word seishuku, which straight up reads silence. Essentially, regardless of how you choose to analyze the OCG name, it truly embodies the overall theme of the archetype. Crazy how much thought is actually put into some of these flimsy pieces of cardboard. Wouldn't you agree? Totally awesome? Some of you watching may or may not be aware of the fact that Voiceless Voice is actually a retrain of a couple of cards from Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Lo and her protector are updated versions of Novox, seen in Novox's prayers, and Skull Guardian, some of the game's first instances of the ritual mechanic. 2002, by the way. Although the ritual spell hasn't shown up frequently in Yu-Gi-Oh's media, Skull Guardian's corresponding card can be seen in episode 43 of Duel Monsters. Skull Guardian itself also appeared as a pseudo-boss monster in the 4Kids 12-episode miniseries Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters. Essentially, Yugi and his friends had to prove to it that they were peaceful to pass its trial and escape the world of Capsule Monsters. We don't have proof of this, but it's entirely possible that this set of cards showcase the same exact characters. After all, if you didn't fall asleep during story time, you will recall that Lo and the Skull Guardian became enlightened after meeting Saphira. Perhaps the Voiceless Voice cards portrayed Novox and the original Skull Guardian following the matter. Side note, the word Novox can be broken into no plus vox, where vox is the Latin word for voice. essentially no voice. The OCG name for the ritual spell, meanwhile, can translate to Law's Prayers, which is close enough to our beloved Lo. Both instances of Saphira in the Voiceless Voice archetype are updates to Saphira, Queen of Dragons, a level 6 ritual monster that debuted all the way back in 2014. I'd like to think that this version of Saphira is the true form of the Dragon Goddess. Notice how both ritual monsters don't look exactly the same. Queen of Dragons is much more simple in its design. Divine Dragon with the Voiceless Voice clearly has more elegant garbs and markings on her body. Perhaps the retrain is a warrior form of Saphira that the deity assumes whenever Lo calls upon her aid. Somewhat supporting this is a choice to make Divine Dragon one level greater than Queen of Dragons and to boost its attack by 50 points, the same amount of attack Lo has. Oh, and Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended? Despite the fact that this card is still played in modern lists unlike the previous mentions, this ritual monster was actually released in 2016. I think the relationship old Saravis shares with new Saravis should be clear. The fact that the ritual monster is the dragon form of the main deck monster. Since we're just piling on trivia at this point, the same way Konami just keeps printing AFDs for whatever reason.
Stop printing AFD.
The original ritual spell intended for Saravis, Sprite's Blessing, portrays Novox aka Lo and some other iconic fairy monsters alongside her, which is neat because it implies a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards might be more connected than we already know. The story behind Voiceless Voice, as we discussed, revolves around Lo. At the same time, if you ever pick up this deck, you'll notice it revolves around summoning Lo. Some of your best effects are only available when the level 1 is on your field. This doesn't mean you immediately lose when the Lo gets nuked by Abyssio, just that you'll have a harder time in those instances than in others. Let me demonstrate with a quick combo. Okay, so the combo I'm going to showcase to all of you is pretty easy. All it requires is one card in the form of Diviner of the Herald. What we're going to do to start this combo is we're going to normal summon the Diviner. Diviner is going to use its effect to send a fairy monster from either the extra deck or the deck to the graveyard. In this case, we're going to send Trias Hierarchia from the deck to the graveyard. We can then use Trias's effect to tribute off the Diviner to summon itself from the graveyard. This will tribute Diviner's effect, when tributed, to summon a level 2 fairy from the deck to our field. In this case, we can summon our beloved Lo. Now, Lo on the field will be able to activate. Lo will basically place a Voiceless Voice spell or trap from your deck onto your field. In this case, we are going to put Barrier up. Now, Barrier has the main phase effect where you can add either a Voiceless Voice card or a Skull Guardian Ritual monster from your deck to your hand. In this case, we're going to use the effect to search Saphira. Saphira can then activate. By discarding itself, it will send a ritual spell from the deck to the graveyard to add a light ritual monster, either warrior or dragon, from your deck to your hand. We're going to send Prayers, and then we're going to add Skull Guardian. Now, because she is the dragon goddess herself, Saphira is good and can banish itself from the graveyard in order to ritual summon a monster. In this case, Lo counting as the entire tribute for this ritual summon, we can tribute itself and then summon Skull Guardian. This will trigger two things, both the Skull Guardian and your Lo. Lo will summon herself back from the graveyard to the field, and Skull Guardian will add a Voiceless Voice card. I'm going to put Lo up first, even though that's not how Chain Links resolve, so that I can explain Skull Guardian's choices here. Basically, you would normally add either Saravis Dragon Sage here or Saravis the Dragon form here, but with this one card combo you don't have enough spells to summon the Saravis, so we'll add the Saravis Ritual spell or Ritual monster. Though note that you could easily add Saravis Dragon Sage instead. And really this would be the conclusion of the combo, where you would have Barrier live, Skull Guardian, and Omni Negate, and you have all this follow up for next turn. Now, this end board might seem underwhelming when compared to the likes of Malice Shenanigans or a single Ricefield Detonator, but it can be surprisingly hard to out. Again, Skull Guardian is an Omni Negate. You might think, okay Toon World, let's just bomb Lo. But Barrier prevents you from attacking her while you have a light ritual monster up. And it's not like you can just immediately invalidate Skull Guardian with an easy imperm. Barrier also prevents you from targeting Voiceless Voice monsters while you control Lo and a ritual monster. Not to be a complete nerd about this, but I absolutely adore how well the deck's playstyle reflects its story. It's basically 1-to-1. And the fact that the Dragon Gods, mainly Saphira, help with the consistency of the deck is the cherry on top. What's also nice about Voiceless Voice is that compared to other ritual archetypes of past eras, its core is quite condensed. That means you can play a ton of non-entrant in your deck list, an increasingly vital requirement nowadays for a deck to be competitively viable. My current iteration of Voices, for example, looks something like this. Nothing super special, just your average run-of-the-mill, let's fill the empty slots with hand traps and make our opponent cry. There are other funny variants you could experiment with if you want, however. Skull Guardian searches any warrior dragon type ritual on summon. You could try and mesh voices with Mikonko or Necros, for example, both of which meet those requirements. I'm not saying such an amalgamation would be good at all. I'm just saying that the door is open for this type of stuff if you're interested. At least give a pure variant a shot. Yep, that was Voiceless Voice. A pretty archetype and a pretty silent archetype. Hopefully that isn't the last time we get retrains of old ritual monsters. Wouldn't it be kind of sick if we got a remastered Lycanthrope, Dark Master Zork, even my boy Fortress Whale? Like, imagine dunking on some Malice player with just a jumbo whale. Though, if Konami doesn't keep up this trend, at least Voiceless Voice is one heck of a run. Anyways, I hope you all found what I had to say today interesting and maybe even learned something new from it. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to drop a like and subscribe. Go check out some of my other videos too. If you enjoy deep dives into the lore about certain Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, there's plenty more on my channel. I've got a Patreon link below if you wish to support me, also a Discord link if you seek to chat about all things Yu-Gi-Oh. Otherwise, I hope you have a good night.